Okay, great. Hello, everyone. So I'm here talking with Claire. She runs a YouTube channel. It's called like Anti SJW, and I've seen a lot of her videos. Just like off and on, she does a lot of stuff that I find interesting, and I wanted to have a discussion with her. So yeah, why don't we start with just talk a little bit about yourself, Claire, and like what got you interested in making YouTube videos, and like what you kind of want to do with your channel.
So I guess I've always been interested in politics and interested in journalistic articles. But recently I've wanted to do something on screen, so I thought I would dabble with doing a YouTube channel about 2 years ago. I started doing actually topics about relationships and dating and things like that. I actually have those those videos hidden right now, and I just decided I moved more into kind of political videos. With I think the video I did on MGTOW was one of the first videos I did that were political, and I may have done a video before that relating to an Andy Warski video. And I think the first thing that led me to on YouTube to the political kind of scene was when I decided to do a video about being mixed race. And then after that, I started looking at lots of other videos on the mixed race issues, and I stumbled upon an Andy Warski video where he has a few videos saying mixed race people crying about being mixed race, and that's how I found Andy Warski, to be honest. Yeah, and that's how I kind of got to know who the so-called anti-SJWs were.
Yeah, so that was how you discovered them. It wasn't like this was before the like really crazy white nationalist stuff.
Oh yeah,
took over.
Yeah, I discovered Andy Warski probably about. I'm trying to think. So what are we now? We're in May 2018.
Yeah.
I did a MGTOW video about April 2017. So I think I discovered Andy Warski probably maybe about February 2017. So call it about 18 months ago. I just discovered him, as I said, when I'd done a video about being mixed race, and I found his videos about, basically mixed race people whining about being mixed race, and that's how I came across him. But that was before he became, I call him now really a de facto white nationalist, but that was before that. He was just a person to me at the time I discovered him. He seemed to me a person that was into politically incorrect. He was against political correctness, and all his videos were ranting against people, so-called social justice warriors. I found him generally very irritating. Occasionally funny, but generally irritating. I never really saw him as a hardcore racist. Now, I kind of see he has really become a hardcore racist now.
Yeah, I think that there's like people like him, they've so easily become like useful idiots for these actually like white nationalist type people. Like you said, at first he's just politically incorrect. He's just some people use the word like status quo warrior. That doesn't really work as well, but I think that's really what it is. It's like, oh, I see people protesting the NFL because they think it's racist. I think that's stupid. He says stuff like that. He said, I think Black Lives Matters is stupid. It's just they see people like trying to create social change. They think it's dumb because they don't understand or they don't care. But they're not out to do any damage, but they're easily fooled by these right-wing narratives about stuff.
Right.
And he's like the perfect example. Like he's not a smart person. Like he's easily fooled by a lot of stuff. And I feel like the whole era of him and JF running a channel together was the perfect synopsis of that. This guy jumps on his channel, uses him as a platform to spread white nationalism, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like this is a disaster.
Right. But the reason, I didn't really look much into them kind of splitting up. I saw that they had split up, if that's still the case. And from what I saw of it, it wasn't anything to do with Andy Warski realizing the error of his ways. It was just some kind of ego-driven fight that he had, you know. So I you know, quite frankly, you know, Andy Warski, I don't know, to redeem himself as a kind of an individual that has any morals, he'd have to do a lot to do that, because, you know, he really has, with this white nationalist thing, he really has made himself look like a really, really bad person.
Yeah, I think the redemption is hard because, you know, again, he's someone who doesn't really care. He doesn't seem to totally understand what he's doing. You know, like he did a discussion with, like, what was it, The Daily Show? I mean, like, these people are straight up white nationalist Nazis. Yeah, and he's just totally oblivious. He just thinks, oh, it's all whatever. Because he thinks it's good for his views, but you don't understand the people who are now viewing your content are toxic, and the toxic people are going to kick out the like rational, reasonable people, and then you're going to be left with and it's hurt his audience now. Like, you look at his videos now, like, he just gets downvoted all the time because all the what was his audience from that period are just angry white nationalist people.
Right. I mean, always had those people, because I didn't know, even back when I first found his videos about 18 months ago, it was horrible looking at the comments. I didn't want to really look at the comments. He had probably about 75% of the people commenting were really racist.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it was interesting because I know he did one video where he actually did an anti-racist video regarding this horrible, this really evil 18-year-old Canadian Nazi. I mean, it seems with loads of Canadian Nazis, but she was like this really young, disgustingly evil Nazi, and he did a video against her. And I noticed he had so many downvotes on that. That was what was so scary, the fact that his so many of his audience had a problem with him critiquing that girl.
I think it was like Rage After Storm, right? That's who you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about some really, really bizarre. Rage After Storm is from the UK, I believe. But there was this Canadian. He did a video, and actually on his video he called it something like Hitler's daughter, and he did it. And it was about, he actually was shocked about how racist she was.
Yeah.
So no, this wasn't Rage After Storm. This was some really, she must be one of the most crazy people I come across. But yeah, she was actually taken off YouTube.
Yeah, but I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's just so many of them. It's like ridiculous. But did you watch or hear anything about the videos he did when JF was his co-host? Are you familiar with that? Like the blood sports era?
Oh yeah, that's why I did a video myself on how Andy Warski could be creating other Dylan Roofs in a response to what he did with JF. And yeah, I'm very aware of it. In fact, when Andy Warski invited me to go on his channel, I said, I'm no way gonna go on with JF. I said, it's one thing that I was not going to do. It was one of the things that disgusted me the most about him. The fact that he would have JF as his co-host. Yeah. That is one of the most sickening things. I just can't, I still can't get my head around that.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Also, how would someone like Chris Warski be okay with that? How would he be able to coexist with someone like JF? I just find that so weird.
JF to me is like the real, like, if you see what he's done, like the open court documents about what he's done, and you are okay with still associating with that guy, I don't know what to say about you, because JF is a serial predator. Like, this guy preys on women, the most vulnerable women he can find, and then he tries to exploit them and take advantage of them. And he that's just what he does. And he really does that in life with all other relationships too. You could see he kind of did that with Andy Warski. He exploited him so that he could get a bigger platform. And he abused him too, basically, on a lot of levels. Like, you just see there's some videos where he's very abusive to him. So I mean, yeah, JF is a horrible human being.
Oh God,
human being. And
I mean, even when I first heard him, he made me feel physically sick. Really. When I first heard, I just have a very visceral reaction to certain things. And like I say, like when I first watched the MGTOW videos, it made me ill just to look at the comment section of MGTOW videos. In the same way with JF, when I heard his voice made me feel ill.
Yeah.
I felt ill. I couldn't watch much with JF, of the Andy Borski videos with JF, because JF made me feel really ill.
Yeah, you can sense it. He's a sick individual.
Oh yeah.
And he's the type of person, like, you know, who all kinds of evil is possible.
Oh,
and in his mind, he's just gonna try and rationalize it. So yeah, I definitely think that you're not going on their channel is probably a very, very good idea.
Yeah.
Because they have no interest in actually discussing ideas. It's more about dogpiling on people and
abuse.
You know, just yeah, it's just internet abuse. It's like let's openly abuse people so that everyone can watch. Yeah, not really a good era of internet discourse.
And there's a kind of strange figure called Mr. Metacurve that you never see, but that's another person that's kind of in that Andy Borski crowd that seems to have a huge influence over him. But I never really seen that character, but that's another person. Don't know.
He's like the Wizard of Oz. He's like pulling the strings a bit. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So let's talk a bit about, you made a video about Milo Yiannopoulos. And you were talking about like, and this is something that I see a lot, like the way he talks about black men and the way that people use that. I've seen a lot of right-wing people use that and say, oh, well, he's not racist. He has sex with black guys. Like, you know, could you talk a bit about that and like what people are trying to do with that even, you know?
I mean, it's such a common misconception that if a person has a relationship with a black person, that somehow it makes them not racist. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people I've come across, just from the fact that my parents are interracial and I come across so many different interracial couples through that. I know for a fact that loads of racists married to black people. So it doesn't matter if you're married to a black person, you can still be racist and say really racist things. You know, I knew a black woman whose husband said he was a white police officer in the UK and he didn't want the black wife bringing any black people to the house. You know, I mean, there are countless examples of extremely racist people married to black people. And just because Milo has sexual relationships, if you want to call them that, with black men does not mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even saying, oh yeah, I only date black guys because they have big dicks and they're really good at sex, like that's racist too. Like that's not like a compliment, you know? Like you're putting these people in a box and you're saying they all exist in this box. They must have these features. It's just not the case.
Exactly. And he said some really racist thing that I believe I quoted, I forget what it was, but he said some very racist thing in a Facebook post. And I believe I put a link to that in the information section on my video, but he said a really sickeningly racist thing. And yeah, it's just so vile. Like there was this particular student questioning him and he was so vile with that student when he was talking about saying really sexually explicit things to him. And it's just like, you know, I kind of wonder if he was talking about white men, would he be talking in this way?
Yeah, but, no, he wouldn't.
Yeah, he seems just a vile person.
Yeah, and I mean, he had all those discussions defending pedophilia. I mean, he like, if you see, there's some old pictures of him, and he's like reading stuff from Hitler and the Nazi era. He's wearing like the Iron Cross. There's like a picture of him with like an Iron Cross necklace. I mean, this guy's flirted overtly with like neo-Nazis a lot. And, you know, when he was on tour, all he did was bully people and attack them and find the most vulnerable person and then send his brigade of trolls after them. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, like why Berkeley blew up the way it did, because he was going to come to UC Berkeley. And before he even got there, he immediately doxed a bunch of transgender students and like attacked them and made fun of them and got them trolled. And then he said openly that he was going to out a bunch of undocumented students and basically
Oh my
get
gosh.
them deported. And that
Oh my God.
caused an escalation in tension to the point where, you know, Antifa came and they shut down the event. Now, I mean, I don't really think that, I don't know, that's a very difficult thing to parse out, like what to do, because he's done this multiple times to a lot of people where he's attacked them and it's ruined their life. And it's like, it's difficult, like, what do you do in that case? Because if it's a public university, and I think they target public universities particularly because they know that there's this conflict where, you know, you can't have the school really protect the students from public discourse because it's a public university and people have the right to speak there. But at the same time, you know, if you're like, there was this one transgender student at, it was like the University of Milwaukee, and he basically just did a routine about how terrible she was and how she was trying to use a women's bathroom, and it ruined her life and she had to leave the school. But like the
Gosh.
school is stuck in a hard place. Like they can't really stop him from speaking, but they can't really protect the student, and they're damned either way. So yeah, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think is like I guess the solution in these type of issues?
I mean, I'm just amazed that universities can be made to have these racist speakers. I'm just amazed. I mean, I know that some of them find ways around it. I know recently, I believe, it was a university in Alabama. I don't know if it was the University of Alabama or just the University in Alabama that Spencer from coming. That happened about 2 weeks ago, I believe. I'm amazed that most universities don't do that. Find some kind of legal loophole to get out of it. I'm just amazed that because their so-called freedom of speech is actually harming other people. Their freedom of speech is very threatening to minority students. And I certainly am really glad I'm not at a university in the US in this day and age, because I think it would be extremely upsetting to have these kind of figures come to the university. And also, this kind of thing encourages recruitment of white nationalists on campus. I just think it would be a very scary time to be at university. And I'm amazed that there isn't some way of legally stopping it.
I think basically what a lot of them have been doing is they require that people have a certain amount of security paid for in advance. And so let's say that, you know, if you and I are going to come and speak at UC Berkeley, there's probably not going to be a lot of people trying to do any violence or protests. But if Milo comes, or if, you know, some other right wing, Richard Spencer, God forbid, came, the level they would have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on security alone just to, you know, to afford to go there. So that, I think that's like what they're trying to do now to get people to disincentivize these type of, you know, crazy, horrible people from coming. But, you know, again, that kind of makes the case for, you know, sort of deplatforming people. It's like, well, if you know, causing disruption is the only way to stop them from harming people, what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah.
So I found the whole Berkeley thing, it's like, it's really, they're just using it as propaganda, right? Propaganda for right wingers to say, oh, we're being deplatformed. Look at us. We don't have any power. You should take our side. But really they're trying to harm and exploit people and then build a narrative around that.
Right. And I think this whole freedom of speech thing is very dishonest. I mean, it is hate speech is what it is. And they're trying to frame it as freedom of speech. And you know, obviously every freedom of speech is something that any sane person would say is a good thing, but there is a line that has to be drawn, and the line is hate speech. And the fact is, most democratic countries have banned hate speech, right? So the only country, I believe, that's democratic that does allow hate speech is America. So there is a precedent there for banning it. So it's not a crazy thing to suggest. Hate speech, there should be an exception for hate speech.
Yeah, in the United States, like our free speech laws are pretty absolutist, which has upsides and downsides. I know that like in the UK, there's definitely been issues with like libel laws, and like I think there's this concept of like libel tourism, where people will get sued in the UK because their libel laws are kind of broad. So I mean that's definitely an upside, is like people don't get sued for basically speaking out against powerful people. But yeah, the disadvantage is like, there's certain classes of people that can get attacked by this type of speech that incites, basically violence against them. So this kind of brings up another thing I want to talk about. Did you see at all like what happened it was called the Day of Freedom in the UK? Did you heard of that?
So I heard of it a lot. I didn't know what happened in it.
Yeah.
I know that I saw on another social media platform a post from Sargon saying that it was a success. But aside from that, I don't really know what happened in it. I just know it was going to be a gathering of fascists
Yeah.
celebrate so-called freedom of speech. But I mean, what they're celebrating is basically the promotion of hate speech. I mean, there would be no problem with their freedom of speech if they weren't trying to promote speech which incites racial hatred and hatred of other minorities.
Yeah.
I mean, there'd be no problem with it. What they're arguing for is for them to be able to say really bad things about minorities and things that could incite violence against minorities.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the most interesting videos I saw from that event was there was some Muslim guy who's trying to speak, and they wouldn't let him speak. Like there was like a gang of people who were with Tommy Robinson, and these people attacked the guy who's trying to speak at the event, and they basically kicked him out.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, this is not about free speech.
Yeah.
This is about speech for certain types of people, certain races of people, and everyone else being, told to shut the hell up and go away, basically.
Exactly. And these people that are arguing so fiercely for free speech right now, people like Richard Spencer, those kind of people, those are the people that if they got to their fantasy ethno states would wipe out free speech. There would be no free speech at all. They want to use free speech to get their evil messages across, but they have no intention of keeping free speech if they were to ever get in power.
Yeah, absolutely. Free speech is a way for them to trick people into, listening to their ideas and being sympathetic to their position. And so if they had power, absolutely, they'd wipe everyone out. I think Richard Spencer even said it as much himself. I saw recently, he said, basically free speech is something that exists when the people are homogeneous and everyone basically agrees on the core principles. But we can debate about, he said, we can debate about things like sports, but we don't want to debate about like the big ideas, which is like that the country should be white and, other horrible things, basically, right? Or that people need to be ethnically cleansed, those aren't the things they want to debate about, but they'll have debates about, government policy or, who's better, the Red Sox or the Yankees, but everything else, all the other people have to go, basically.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, they definitely don't have any interest in freedom of speech or any type of open exchange of ideas. They want their ideas to dominate, and then they want to exterminate everyone else and get them out.
And I think that the people that are so fiercely promoting freedom of speech actually agree with the Nazis, because I don't see any other reason why you would promote it, because what you are promoting is hate speech. So if you are fiercely promoting the right to have hate speech, then in my opinion, you actually are one of those haters. So I'm just very skeptical about anyone that claims they're not a Nazi who is pushing for freedom of speech. Because no one has a problem about freedom of speech. They have a problem with hate speech. If you're pushing fiercely for hate speech, then you are one of the people that wants to engage in it.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think there's some parts of the internet where there are people who are like kind of free speech absolutists who aren't like all about that. They're more like, I don't know, centristy people. But I mean, my biggest problem with people like that is they just have a hard time understanding the realism of like what these type of people are trying to do. You know, the like I had a debate with a guy, and he was literally trying to tell me that people saying blood and soil is not a threat.
Mm.
And that was just very strange to me. It's like, well, you know that this has a Nazi context, right? And you know that these people who are chanting this stuff, like their intention is to replicate what the German state did at that time. He's like, oh no, 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 it's totally neutral and blah blah blah. And I don't understand that. Like people that can see this level of hate and not understand it for what it is, not try to be a bulwark against it, you know?
Well, that's why I'm skeptical about them really being that innocent. You know, when you say they might be free speech absolutists, I'm actually skeptical about it. I feel that there's something toxic about that person. I really do. I find it really difficult to believe that they just are that thick that they don't know. You know,
Yeah.
I think there's something about them that they are a closet racist or fascist.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. But it's just very infuriating to like, that was probably one of the more infuriating discussions I've had is like trying to explain to someone, yes, the people at Charlottesville were trying to incite violence, you know? And
Exactly.
yeah.
The people that equate the protesters, the peaceful protesters at Charlottesville with the Nazis, and then pretend not to understand when you're trying to explain that there is a big difference between the people who were peaceful protesting and the people that were there. I can't stand this thing where you get these so-called anti-SJWs pretending not to understand. I just think that's another strategy that fascists use in this day and age, which is to basically pretend about things. Fascism these days is undercover fascism. Nazis these days don't come out and say they're Nazis. I mean, even Richard Spencer, he still denies he's a racist.
Yeah.
You know, the whole aspect of modern day fascism is denial and to pretend that you're pushing for something that is not really what you're pushing for. You want to actually sugarcoat it, and the use of euphemisms is very big.
Yeah, absolutely. And they use these very disingenuous debating tactics. One of these things I saw going around recently was it was like Karl Rove's. He had like a list of tactics for debating someone, and basically all of them were, oh, make the other person do the runaround, make them, expend all this energy trying to debunk your claims, or make them spend all the energy, and so then they're going to tire themselves out, and then they'll basically leave the space and we can invade it with bad ideas. And that's a tactic that these type of people use as well. Whenever they're allowed into any space, they just flood it with bad ideas and they use disingenuous tactics. And then, at the end of the day, like, who has the time to debate with these horrible people about whether or not Black people have a right to exist? Like, what's the point?
Exactly.
Like, I'm not going to waste my time with that.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to go on the Andy Dworsky show, because I just thought, I don't want to go and debate with you as to whether I have a right to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to debate that I'm an okay human being with you.
Yeah.
I've seen a point in it. I'm not going to debate with Richard Spencer. I don't want to debate with him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's not worth the time. And in a few years, he'll be irrelevant. And then, there'll be some other person will pop up. Like, it seems like every, I don't know, 20 years or so, this kind of stuff comes up again. There was definitely a point in the 90s in America where, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie American History X? Are you familiar with that movie?
American what?
American History X.
No, I actually haven't.
Okay. So it's a really, really well done movie from like the 90s about like skinhead neo-Nazis in Southern California. And at that time, Edward Norton's in it, and so is Edward Furlong, and there's some other people. But the plot of the movie is like this guy. He's a skinhead, and then he like commits a murder of like some black people, and then he goes to jail. But while he's in jail, he kind of gets reformed, and then he gets out, and he's kind of like, you know, he has to prevent his younger brother from going down his same path. And I think it's a really well done film. It kind of captures that sort of the essence of like that time period. You know, like it's like right after Rodney King and OJ and this other kind of stuff that, you know, caused racial tensions to flare up some more. And so, yeah, I feel like it just kind of happened. There's different, you know, at that time, David Duke was like running for office, you know? So at that time, David Duke was the Richard Spencer of the 90s.
Gosh.
Yeah. And then these people, they just keep popping up. They just keep popping up. And then, you know, it's just like, they're like cockroaches. They don't go away. But you know, every so often their ideas get soundly defeated, and then people forget, and then they come back, you know. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that film. It's a pretty good movie.
Right. What's it called again?
It's called American History X.
Okay, American History X.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I can say personally, living in California, I've definitely interacted with a fair number of like neo-Nazi people in places you wouldn't expect. Like, I used to be more of a like libertarian type person. And I remember me and my friends, so I met some people through YouTube that we hung out, and I'm still friends with them. They live in different state now. But we went to this rally in San Francisco for some guy who was running as a Republican against Nancy Pelosi, who of course he lost, of course. But my friend brought someone from like the Northern Californian Libertarian chapter with him. It's just like this guy, and so this is a guy, he had been in the Libertarian chapter of like that part of California for like decades. This guy was a straight up neo-Nazi. All he would talk about was racist IQ. All he would do is like say these racist things. Totally horrible person. Now, my friend, to give him credit, like he denounced this guy, and we never saw this guy again.
Right.
But so this guy was a libertarian, right? And so so just like imagine the type of people that got sunk into these type of groups, you know, for years, and they've had power and they've had control, and they've been putting up candidates that agree with them and have these horrible ideas. Yeah, on all levels, these people will seep into society. And I mean, for me, that was definitely one of the points where I was like, I need to get out of this type of movement, because there's just a bunch of people who say, oh yeah, I'm libertarian, but I hate immigrants, which doesn't make any sense to me. Or, oh yeah, I'm a libertarian, but I hate black people and I want them to leave.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and you just see like these things, these contradictions. You're like, wait, what? And that's like, that's there for a reason. They're there for a reason, because that's how they sold these ideas in the 90s. Was like, once the bell curve came out and like all these other race realism stuff, they started selling to people, oh, like libertarianism is the best way for us to have a society where we're going to cut welfare from black people. We're going to kick them out. We're going to have a state that has low taxes. It's just for white people. And hey, 10 years later, you have all these racist libertarian people, and they all probably voted for Donald Trump, basically.
Right. Well, there actually is there is a lot you can find on the internet about the libertarian to alt-right pipeline. So libertarianism is often viewed as a gateway drug to the alt-right. And so it's not, I mean, it's no accident that lots of well-known neo-Nazis used to be or are currently libertarians. I know Christopher Cantwell, he's either a libertarian or used to be one. A whole range of neo-Nazis used to be libertarian. So it's a very common kind of gateway into fascism,
Yeah.
as is classical liberalism.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that we should talk about too. Is like, why do you think people are adopting the term classical liberal now? And I mean, are they really liberal at all? These people?
No, I don't know what. I mean, it's a different meaning even from the original term classical liberal. The classical liberal of of 2018 is someone who is essentially fascist, but they want a kind of a term that doesn't appear to make them fascist to apply to themselves. But I mean, an example of a classical liberal is roaming millennial. She is the classic, what I call smiling Nazi, because everything she seems to really hate blacks. She's just an all-round racist, in my opinion. And so she's a typical classical liberal.
Yeah, I don't know if I would put her there, but the problem with people like her is that they talk to people like Spencer, right? Mm-hmm. And so Spencer's like he's basically a Nazi. And so Richard Spencer goes on her channel and he talks about how bad like identity politics is, which what he means by that is black people having more power. Mm-hmm. And he talks about, just like how white people are oppressed. She agrees with all of that, basically. She basically agrees with that. And then he says, oh yeah, by the way, I'm for a welfare state for white people. I'm for socialism for white people. I'm for environmentalism for white people's lands and countries. And she just agrees with that. But not because it's for white people, because it's socialism, and socialism is bad.
Right.
I mean, that's so weird to me. It's like do you understand that you are giving him a platform? You barely disagree with him, and you disagree with him for reasons that don't make any sense, And so she doesn't understand that, like, by giving him a platform, she's helping spread his ideas basically to a bigger audience.
I think she understands perfectly well what she's doing. I just think she's probably, in my opinion, one of the worst instances of the anti-SJWs on YouTube, in my opinion, because she gives a platform to Nazis. She's had numerous Nazis on her channel, numerous, probably more Nazis than any other anti-SJW person, aside from Andy Warski.
Yeah.
So I would say she's equal to Andy Warski in the amount of Nazis she's had on her channel. She had Nazis on her channel way before Andy Warski had them on his channel. And she's worse in a way than Andy Warski because she's so smug, really, really smug. The smugness is really sickening.
Yeah, I feel the same way about these kind of people who think that they're totally objective and neutral. And like, she was in this debate with it turned into a giant dog pile. It was like a bunch of anti-SJWs and some like more left of center people. And there's this guy Nick Fuentes who's another closeted white nationalist. He doesn't want to openly say that he is because that's bad for optics. And he was basically saying that if he had power, they would, basically there wouldn't be any gay people or any transgender people. They'd all be sort of sent off to be re-educated or whatever. And she just listened to this and basically didn't say anything. And it was hosted on her channel, I believe. And she had no response to that. And then later she was like, "Oh well, it's not my job to be your attack dog." Mm. It's like, well, it's not being your attack dog. Like, do you agree with these things? Do you care at all about these things? Like, why do you want to associate with people who are saying these type of things that want to perpetuate violence against people that don't have much power in society?
Because she is one of them, in my opinion. She is, in my opinion, as bad as Tara McCarthy, who's I described in my video as the worst racist I had come across on the internet. But when you actually think about it, the one thing I will say for her is that she at least is honest about what she wants.
Yeah.
I think that Rami Millennial probably agrees with everything she says, but Rami Millennial will not come out and say it.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, I don't know for sure like what she thinks, and I don't want to like say what she thinks, but she's
Right.
definitely like these people have done harm. They have done harm and they don't care. And to me, that's the real problem. Is like they continue to spread like total bullshit. And I remember one time, I forget what it was about, but basically she made a video that was like very poorly sourced. By poorly, I mean it was like Breitbart or some other just total trash news sources. I was like, hey, like how can you take these things seriously? This is all just right wing propaganda. And she said, well, the the media is so liberal that I can't take anything that they say seriously. Therefore, I have to go to these sources to
Mhm.
get real information.
Right, and those sources are mysteriously real.
Yeah, it's like,
Right. I
oh,
wonder how those ones real.